look at your new ball joint and make sure it doesn't fall through and that it looks reasonably close to the original. Make sure your surfaces are clean and flat. Put a little penetrating oil on the hole and we'll start putting it back in. This slot on this boot goes inboard for the grease to weep out when you fill it full of grease and not get onto the rotor by pointing it out toward the wheel. Now I'm going to look for an adapter that just catches this outside metal collar on this lower ball joint. And it looks like it's going to work. Then I'll look for something to straddle this hole at the end of the ball joint. Can go up into about 1/8 of an inch. That should do it. Now the ball joint will have to be watched to make sure it gets started in there square all the way around. Just not tilting one way or the other. If it does, you'll have to turn this C-clamp to the other side and walk it back in alignment. This gap will have to be watched to make sure it keeps the same distance all the way around as it closes up. Looks like it's down pretty good. You could take a feeler gauge and go around it and check it to make sure if you really wanted to. It's a place for the new clip to go back in, sticking up. And you can take a mirror and look to make sure the ball joint's against the control arm all the way around. That's super critical unless you want the ball joint to come back out. Possibly, or open up the control arm until the clip lets go. Install your new snap ring. Then install your grease fitting. Make sure it's straight. Thread it down in there till it bottoms. Grease fittings installed. Grease bleed slot inboard. It's time to slip the spindle back up on it, put it together. The quarter pin hole, I'm going to set it at a 45 to the wheel. You're supposed to put the head of the quarter pin into this way or it'll get into the wheel assembly. I want enough room to do that. Slide it in. This is straight with the wheel. Clean the debris off from around the lower ball joint hole on the spindle. Be sure not to damage the threads on the end of your spindle. I'll knock some of this off too on the top ball joint. Make sure the tapered hole is not damaged on the spindle. And look at your old ball joint, make sure it didn't have any problems on this cone shape. And stick it back up on there. Lay your ABS cable up in its general position. Now we're going to get this pinch bolt started down in that. Sticking a bar up here underneath the shock tower, or whatever you can get a hold of. We'll pry it down into this spindle. You get your pinch bolt out. This upper ball joint has a rib on it to accommodate this bolt right here. You gotta get that rib down to that bolt hole. More or less involved pushing it all the way down as far as you can go. Stick the pinch bolt in. And it tightens up to 35 to 45 foot-pounds. I generally just put the spindle back where it was when it come off. Unless you're putting a new ball joint in the top, it don't matter then. The lower ball joint nut is snug down but not tight yet. The lower ball joint nut torques to 85 to 110 foot-pounds. And I'll set the torque wrench to 80 foot-pounds till it clicks. And then turn it tighter till I get to the next alignment hole for the carter pin to go through. The head of it's got to be facing the tire, and the end of it's got to be bent in away from the tire, or you can get into the workings out here. Although you may want to locate your pinhole first so you know where it's going to be at. I just rotate a nut and mine's facing backwards some. My alignment hole settled in at 105 foot-pounds. And that's how I'll be bending it. I'm going to go ahead and put the back brake plate dust cover back on with the 3 5/16 headed bolts in it. But won't be as hard to get it in there, I guess. I went ahead and routed the ABS wires back in their places along the frame. I just need to put the 5/16 bolts back in the bracket that holds the wire against the spindle. Now with the tie rod ends off of it, and check your tie rod ends for looseness while you got it apart. Replace as necessary. Wash all this off with brake cleaner. Get any dirt particle off of it. Then cover it with a haze of grease. Sticks the rotor back on it. I've covered the spindle end with high temperature grease, meeting Ford specifications. Now, this is high temperature grease. This isn't just grease you'd put in a ball joint. There's a difference in the two. The regular ball joint grease won't take the high temperatures the brake pads put on the rotor, and it will dissolve and not do its job, leak out. It just pretty much turns to oil when it gets really, really hot, breaks down. This high temperatures a little thicker and will stay put at higher temperatures. Just grease the bearing face up, the spindle, with about a 1/16 inch, maybe a little heavier in this middle part. I'll just slide the rotor right back on there. Keep greasy fingerprints off your rotor face so you don't damage your brake pads with the grease. Now I just need to insert the outer bearing back in there. This would be an optimal time to repack the bearings if you needed it done. These bearings have been done within a year, but I may redo these outer ones while I got it out. Insert your bearings. Then your spacer washer. It has a flat place in it to accommodate the flat place on the spindle. I usually orientate the nuts back in the way they come off, flipping them upside down. Causes stress on the threads, both on the nut and the spindle, and can lead to thread failure in one or the other. Seen it happen before. Usually just on bigger stuff, but what I'll do is snug this bearing down to about 10 pounds and rotate it a few times, then back it off and then snug it back down till I can, not tight, but just finger tight, just past finger tight or at finger tight, till I can find an alignment hole that this will hook up, this star looking deal will hook up into. Just so that all the slack's out of it and the rotor doesn't move any. Several purposes for this: to displace any air trapped in there and any other problems. Now just loosen it, rotate it again. And finger tight. Let's see if we can line something up here. I recommend using a new Carter pen if you got it. Okay, just like downtown. Rotor's got no movement, and this bearing's snug but not tightened down. More than a few inch pounds. Rotor face is clean. Taking and knock the grease cap back on it. Feel free to grease the ball joint anytime. The grease fitting, I end up stopping it forward, maybe inboard just a little bit forward. I'm going to go ahead and put the caliper hanger, brake caliper hanger back on it. So 15mm bolts. The 15mm caliper hanger bolts torque to 90 foot-pounds. The caliper bolts 13mm and they torque to 25 foot-pounds. Check your brake slides while you're in here and make sure they're not stuck. Okay, you can drop your tie rod in down there. Put the cast-on nut on it. It torques to 45 to 55 foot-pounds. Time to put the wheel back on it if you've greased your ball joint. That'll stop the squeaking on this side anyway. The lug nut studs torque to 100 foot-pounds. All you need to do now is the other side and get in alignment. It'll be ready to go and it won't have to worry about damaging it. This side here is essentially the same. Absolutely should be aligned after you get done putting these ball joints in. Yeah, just took care of it. No more squeaking noise.